my name is Ines, and this is Carmen, and we're gonna do this microeconomic project about, we're gonna study the relation between the education and the living standard of Poland.
We're going to study this relationship in order to come to the conclusion of whether or not it's worthwhile to continue investing in our education, and therefore decide, should I stay
or should I go?
In order to do this project, we have taken the information from the document created by the OECD Education at a Glance 2013.
OECD stands for the Organization for Economic and Cooperation and Development. It's an international economic organization for 34 countries founded in 1961 to stimulate economic progress and world trade.
The country we have chosen, Poland, joined the OECD in 1996. Before we go on talking about Poland, I wanted to give you a brief description of the country. As we all know, the capital of Poland is Warsaw, and the country, situated in Northern Europe, shares a border with Germany and Russia, something that has led to its historical background. However, Poland has had great economic development and joined the European Union in 2004. So, in order to compare the relationship between living standards and education level, we have classified the population aged 25 to 64 in 3 different groups. The first being population with less than superior secondary education, population with superior secondary education or post-secondary non-tertiary education, and last but not least, population with tertiary education or higher.
Given this classification, we have focused on how these population groups compare in the following rates: employment levels, unemployment levels, average salary, obesity levels, and number of smokers. The first graph, as we can see, shows a direct relationship between employment level and education level. This means that the higher the education level, the higher the employment rate. This is reflected in the 85% employment level of adults among 25 and 64 years old who have completed tertiary education, 2% above the OECD average. Whereas adults among 25 and 64 years old who have graduated from below upper secondary or upper secondary do not achieve a higher employment rate than the OECD average of 50 and 60.
The second graph shows the unemployment levels with respect to education levels. In contrast with the first graph we have seen, this graph shows an inverse relationship between unemployment and education level. This meaning that the higher the education level, the lower the unemployment rate. Nonetheless, it is necessary to highlight the huge unemployment rate in Poland among adults among 25 to 64 years old, a rate of 17%. This 17% corresponds to adults who have graduated from below upper secondary and have not pursued their studies. On the other hand, adults who have accomplished tertiary education have an unemployment rate of 4.3%. This is below the 4.5% OECD average and a very good level for the European standard.
The following graph shows the relationship between relative earnings and education. As adults among 25 and 64 years old get further education level, the relative earnings from employment are higher. Apart from this, it is noteworthy the relative earnings in each 3 groups are higher than the OECD average relative earnings, as we can see in the graph.
The last 2 graphs show the relationship between education level and 2 health factors, which is the number of obese people in the country and the number of smokers. With respect to these 2 rates, we can see that they both follow the same relationship. This is, the higher the education level, the more aware they are of the consequences of bad health and therefore the rate decreases. This is, the higher the education level, the lower the obesity level, and the same with smoking levels. With respect to the OECD average, with regards to obesity, our country, Poland, is at the same level as the average with below upper secondary education levels. However, the more education levels, the more it falls under the OECD average for obesity. With regards to smoking, however, they are always above the OECD average. So, after extracting all of this information from a fascinating 570-page document by the OECD, we've come to the following conclusion.
So, in Poland, the higher the level of education, the higher the standard of living. So if you really want to stay in Poland, you should invest in your own education and graduate for tertiary education.
And if you don't, the most likely scenario is that you're going to have to migrate, which is actually what has happened in Poland. After Poland joined the European Union in 2004, over 700,000 Poles have migrated to the United Kingdom, making Polish the second most spoken language in England, and the Poles are the third largest foreign-born community in the UK. And that's pretty much it. From us, that's all.
So we have to let you know
that it's time for us to go.